The United States has now imposed new sanctions on 7 senior Russian officials over attempted assassination of the Kremlin critic and opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The key people named in the U.S. sanctions include Alexander Bortnikov, the head of the FSB, Russia's premier intelligence agency, as well as 14 entities that are involved in the chemical and biological industrial base in Russia. Not just that, Washington has also blacklisted Deputy Defense Ministers Alexei Krivoruchko and Pavel Popov. Russia called the sanctions absolutely unacceptable, quote-unquote. The Kremlin said the claims that the Russian security agency was behind Alexei Navalny's poisoning are absolutely outrageous. Kremlin officials added that the sanctions would not achieve their goal and would merely worsen the already strained relationship. These measures are being coordinated with similar moves taken by the European Union. Earlier on Tuesday, remember, Brussels announced a travel ban as well as asset freezes for senior Russian officials. They include Alexander Kalashnikov, the head of the Russian prison system, Alexander Bastrykin, chairman of the investigative committee, Chief Prosecutor Igor Krasnov, and Viktor Zolotov, the head of Russia's National Guard. Let's go straight across now to Stuart Smith, joining us from Moscow. Stuart, did these 7 officials named by the United States for those sanctions have assets in America? Because that would help determine if the sanctions were just symbolic in nature.
It certainly would, and actually Dmitry Peskov, the president's spokesperson, made this point in a press conference earlier today. He says that because of the nature of these officials' jobs, we're talking very, very senior, very high-level people involved in national security of Russia. Because of that, Russian law already actually forbids them from owning property abroad, from travelling abroad and holding assets abroad, which rather does point towards the suggestion that this is a rather hollow set of sanctions in reality. Certainly, Joe Biden has been talking the talk in terms of wanting to pressure Russia and be far more diligent about countering any Russian or perceived Russian aggression, violation of human rights by Russia. But that might imply indeed that these sanctions are not something which really will make a difference to Russia, other than sending a very strong signal that the US considers the treatment of Alexei Navalny, both his alleged poisoning and his imprisonment, as a violation of his human rights. But Peskov, the spokesperson of President Putin, does say that the intention behind these, he believes, is to meddle in the internal affairs of Russia. And in his words, they are absurd without any justification.
And would ultimately impact the already strained ties between the two sides. Stuart, Russia has maintained that there are no legal grounds to set Alexei Navalny free. It has rejected those calls from the international community so far. What impact has this had on the Russian opposition? Have we seen their movement fizzling out on the ground?
The Russian opposition, the supporters of Alexei Navalny, his anti-corruption campaign team, have been meeting with US and European Union diplomats to try and discuss the best measures to try and influence the Kremlin and to push Russia towards freeing Alexei Navalny. And in response to this latest wave of sanctions, the people supporting Alexei Navalny said they welcomed what has been done, but that the European Union does need to go further. Down on the ground here in Russia, there's little activity related to Alexei Navalny, not like we saw a month ago. However, that is partly because the opposition did call off protests until the spring, until the summer. At the time, a representative of Alexei Navalny's anti-corruption team said that the plan is to use international sanctions to try and free Alexei Navalny. They're going to reserve protest and on-the-street demonstrations until summer before the elections in September. So a rather two-pronged strategy, but certainly in terms of the headlines Navalny was making last month, he's having a much lesser presence on the Russian media and on the Russian consciousness now that he has been imprisoned in a penal colony east of Moscow.
Stuart Smith, thanks very much for those updates, leaving it there for the moment. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.